What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's me, Rob, from Sage Tower Games, and we are back with part 3 of our Lost Omens Ancestry Guide review, diving deep into all the different ancestries. There are 14 different ancestries. We've already covered 8 of them so far, so this video will cover the last 6. So let's hop on in and take an exploration. So we're starting off with the Oread. Let's just make this nice and big so we can see what's going on. The Oread is a versatile heritage, so it is not its own ancestry. It's one that you can kind of like half combine with a different heritage. And we can check out the pictures. Do we have a little like Oread blacksmith, kind of like has that like green copper type skin. And then we have this woman that has almost like a very stone like diamond crystalline body to her. So obviously the Oread is similar to the Ifrit we saw in the last video, except they are coming from the plane of Earth. So they're more related to shaitans or crystal dragons, those kind of things. So similar, we will scroll down. You have an Earth elemental ancestor. You may have crystalline or metallic sheen to your skin or hair. You gain the Oread trait. You also gain low light, or you gain dark vision if you already have low light. And then let's see what feats we have. So, Dust Soul. Your Earth Elemental Ancestors influence manifests in you as dust and dirt. You gain trained in survival. And you can sustain yourself on dirt and ash instead of normal food and water. So, you don't have to really eat. You can eat just dirt and ash instead of food. Okay. I mean, it makes you unique, makes you a bit special, but not the greatest thing. Elemental Eyes, we've seen from the Ifrit. You can gain dark vision. Elemental Lore, same thing. So in this case, it would be the plane of Earth lore. Elemental Trade. You have so this gives you crafting and specialty crafting. So you got a specialty crafting feat and trained in crafting. We've seen this with other ancestries in this book that have some sort of level 1 crafting feat to them. Gem Soul. So you kind of shimmer like a crystalline gemstone. You're trained in performance and you gain the impressive performance skill feat. So this is if you want to be kind of fancy, you want to do that. If you're going to focus on performing, this is the feat for you. Genie weapon familiarity, we've already kind of seen with the Ifrit, you're trained in genie weapons, and it leads to the other different genie weapon feats. Maya Soul. You have a connection to the plane of Earth and kind of with the plane of water, so you're a bit more muddy than rock. So you're trained in acrobatics and you gain the quick squeeze skill feat. And similar to some of our other ancestors, we've seen a lot of them have that like squeezing or escaping type of an ancestry feat. Steady on Stone. You ignore difficult terrain caused by rubble and uneven ground made of stone and earth. In addition, when you use the acrobatic skill to balance on ground that's essentially stone or earth, you aren't flat-footed, and if you roll a success, it's a crit instead. So if you're balancing or doing something like that on stone structures, it's a bit easier for you. Again, I feel that's very, very situational. Fortified Shield. You reinforce your shield with a rocky outgrowth of metal and stone. You raise your shield. If you use the shield block reaction, add your character level to the shield's hardness. So once per day, you can make your shield a little bit more durable, which if you're a fighter, you can soak up an extra 5 to 20 points of damage once per day. Okay, it's not the greatest. If it was, you could do it more often, maybe. Genie Weapon Flourish, we've seen that this gives you the crit specialization. Skillful Tail, again, we've seen this one as well. Remember, I did talk about this a bit with the Ifrit, where a lot of these all different elemental ancestries have a very similar feat line. So the Skillful Tail one gives you a tail that can manipulate objects, interact. It can't hold anything, but you at least have a tail that can kind of work with it. Treacherous Earth. You have the power to shatter the earth. You crack the ground beneath you, creating difficult terrain in a 5-foot burst centered on one corner of your space. And it's once every 10 minutes. So this one combined with that one that makes it so you don't have difficult terrain on Earth. So that because you could just essentially just keep cracking Earth and just keep making difficult terrain. Earth Sense. You gain Tremor Sense as an imprecise sense with a range of 30 feet. Okay, again, we've seen a lot of sense feats, so it's always good to have more ways to detect creatures. Shaitan Magic. You can cast Glitter Dust and resist energy once per day. Alright, not some good useful spells. We've seen Genie Weapon Expertise. Metal Vein Strikes. Choose either cold iron or silver. Your unarmed attacks are treated as the chosen type of metal. This is good for a monk, definitely. You can definitely like have silver strikes without having to like pay anything for it. So overall, pretty good one if you're a monk. Otherwise, it doesn't have much use. One with the earth, you gain a burrow speed. You don't see many things that have a burrow speed, so that's always interesting. Shaitan Skin, you can cast Stone Skin on yourself only 3 times per day as a 4th level arcane insight spell. That's actually a pretty good one, because that one lets you, 3 times per day, that's a lot of armor that can absorb a lot of hits. So probably will last you most days, unless you're like really a frontliner and taking a beating. Summon Earth Elemental, we've seen it's the Fire Elemental, it's the same thing, the summoning an Earth one. And last but not least, Stone Form. Once per day, you cast Elemental Form as a 7th level innate spell, but you can only choose the Earth Elemental form. So at 7th level, you are a huge Earth Elemental, 15-foot reach, 22 plus your level, 17, so 39 AC, 20 hit points, attack modifier of plus 25, a damage bonus of plus 11, double the number of damage dice, so 4d10 plus 11. So this makes yourself into a massive Earth Elemental. Nice little capstone, if you will. So overall, similar to Ifrit, there's some good stuff here. Doesn't blow your way out because you can kind of pick between this heritage and whatever your other heritage is. But there's some good ones here. If I had to pick some, I would say the Treacherous Earth with the one that allows you to kind of balance yourself. That might just be, I think that's, yeah. So Steady on Stone into like Treacherous Earth, and then you have like what any of these really, but I think that's really the big combo for that one. So all right, let's hop on over to the Sprite. This is a pure ancestry, not a versatile one. So let's hop in and see. This one is rare, so keep that in mind for those of you that are wanting to make sprites. It does need a bit of a GM approval there. And obviously sprites are like fey creatures. They come from the first world. You can see this. I still don't know what I'm really looking at, to be honest here. If you know what I'm looking at, let me know in the comments down below. I don't know what this is. It looks like a mouse, but it's not a mouse. I don't know. This one makes more sense. It's like a little pixie kind of thing, even though even though it is wielding like a war razor, which is almost as big as its entire body. Still makes more sense. So let's see what we got here. 6 hit points, a little bit less, tiny size, speed 20, dexterity intelligence as a boost, ability flaw is a strength, so minus strength, languages common and Sylvan, and you have low light vision and all your attacks are magical. They also go into rules here about tiny PCs and riding PCs. So because you're a tiny PC, you can technically ride on another player. And it just goes into rules saying how initiative works, how when you guys traveling, and same with tiny PCs. That because you're tiny, you don't actually have a reach, so you have to actually be in the space of the person you're attacking. And it gives you rules for that. That stuff, you know, I'll let you guys read that stuff on your own if you want specific rules for that. So, going to sprite heritages, let's see what we got. Draxi, you are akin to fairy dragons, very, very popular companion. Tracing your back to the death of the mightiest fairy dragon, you gain touch telepathy, allowing you to communicate silently and purely mentally with any creature you're touching. So that could be cool if you're like making a PC that you're gonna like ride on top of another player. Because you're touching them, you can kind of like communicate between you guys without even needing to talk. Grig, you have the hindquarters of a cricket and adore art and music. So, to me, this kind of reminds me of the cricket from James and the Giant Peach. You have cricket legs. So you get +2 to athletics on high jump or long jump, and you gain the ghost sound cantrip. I mean, just being a giant cricket could be cool, just in general. Luminous Sprite. You naturally shed light as a torch. This light has the evocation, light, and primal traits. And you can change the color, rekindle it, turn it off. So you just come with a natural light source. Malixi. You have the features of a bee, butterfly, or other insect. You can ask questions and receive answers from arthropods. So you can talk to bugs and insects. And you can make diplomacies and, you know, to actually negotiate with them. So, that's interesting. Then you have Nyctera, a bat-like feature. So you kind of have an affinity for bats. You can seek as if you essentially almost have like a 60-foot cone as opposed to a 30-foot cone. And you can hear undetected things, and there's a specific feat for them. And then Pixie is just, instead of tiny, you're small. So if you don't want to deal with all the issues of being a tiny PC, but you still want to play a sprite, you can be a pixie. So, to go back for the heritages, I would say, I mean, this one's cool if you want to ride the Draxi, I think. Luminous is fine. I mean, they're all okay. None of them are really blowing me away, to be perfectly honest. They're okay. Sprite feats. Right here. End of story. Game over. Corgi mounts. That's all we need. Corgi mounts. If you're making a sprite, you should ride a corgi into battle. Why wouldn't you? Like, why wouldn't you? That would be the most amazing thing to see. Especially if you were like some ridiculous character and you just rode around on a corgi. I don't even care about the stats of the corgi. It's just a corgi mount. Done. 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 Evanescent wings. You've manifested wings that can flutter. So you don't need to spend an additional action to reach anything in your space that a medium creature could reach. So normally you'd have to spend one action to like get there, another action to actually open it. This one gets rid of that. And it leads you to the Energized Wings, which gives you a fly speed of 30 for 1 minute. And it leads you to Hero's Wings, which we'll leave because that one's a bit farther down. Fey cantrips. You gain Dancing Light and Ghost Sound. And if you have the Grig, which makes sense because Grig already have Ghost Sound, you also gain Detect Magic. And if you have the Draxi, because I think Draxi has the lights, you gain Prestidigitation. So you gain a few different spells. They're useful spells. Overall, not groundbreaking by any means. Speak with Bats. We've seen this for what is mentioned with the Nyctera one. You can make a diplomacy check with bats. It's interesting that they made this a feat. And for the one with the bugs, they made it so that you actually had to, it was as part of the ancestry. That is strange. I'm guessing that bats are a bit more I don't know. That's a bit weird. Sprite's Spark. You fling a portion of your magic. So similar to what we saw with the Kitsuine, they have like I think it was called Foxfire, where you could throw a bit of magic at someone. This one allows you to do a similar attack. Same thing, improves with hand wraps of Mighty Blows, and depending on what heritage you are, changes the actual damage type. Animal Speaker. So this one builds on those other ones, be it the beam one or the Speak with Bats. Now you can speak to all animals, not just a particular set. So you could take the bat feat 11-1, and then take the level 5 one to now speak to everything. Catchy Tune. This time you make a performance check, and all enemies have to make it, and they kind of take speed penalties because they just can't help but dance. And unless they, and it is against the world, you see. Okay. And then so unless you crit fail, it's a tempo. You can do it multiple times. It seems like, really. Yeah, there's nothing stopping you unless you crit fail. They won't be immune to it. So you could just keep singing and just keep giving them speed penalties. Fey Disguise. Cast Illusionary Disguise upon yourself. And as it heightens up as you level up. So if you want to make yourself something different, you can. Energized Wings, we've seen that's the one that gives you a fly speed. Fey Magic. Now you can cast Fairy Fire and Invisibility, both solid spells, giving you self-invisibility and exposing invisible creatures. So those are solid magic spells to gain. Fey Skin. So obviously Cold Iron is usually a weakness to Fey. Increase your maximum hit points by an amount equal to your level, 13. If you rest for 10 minutes, brilliant light from the first world seeps into your form. causing you to regain a number of hit points. So you can short rest and gain hit points equal to your level. However, you gain a weakness 5 to cold iron. So if you're okay with the cold iron weakness, you can essentially get a good short rest healing, which is pretty good, to be honest. Invisible Trickster, you can cast 4th level invisibility as a primal innate spell. So it pretty much greater invisibility for those that are used to maybe like 1st edition, where it lasts 1 minute, but it doesn't end if you attack. And then Hero's Wings, the last one like we mentioned. This one, your wings are always in the majestic form. Now you have a permanent fly speed. And sprites recognize you as some, heroic Fey because of your wings. So you gain a +2 diplomacy bonus when dealing with against sprites. So mainly this is just for the permanent flight speed primarily, unless you're playing a game involving a lot of Fey. Yeah, I mean, I can't say anything, Kogi mount. End. I mean, the problem is you have to, the problem is you either have wings or you have a Kogi mount. So that's up to you to decide which one you really want. Overall though, the sprite does give you a good, interesting way to kind of mix up making a character, as it's a whole new way to play with a tiny PC and riding someone, or, riding a corgi. Just saying. Alright, the Suli. Now the Suli are an interesting one because they do fit in with the elemental versatile heritages, but they are kind of, instead of being from a specific plane, they represent genies of all the elements. So they kind of just flow between each element. So you kind of dichotomy of opposing elemental forces. You gain low light or you gain dark vision if you already have low light. So, Suli feats. Dual born. Choose 2 elements: air, earth, fire, and water. Once you make this choice, it cannot be changed. You gain resistance equal to half your level to all damaging effects with those traits. So you could pick earth and fire, and then you have resistance to earth and fire. So, and then it goes into some of the other spells, how those spells work if you pick this dual born ability. Elemental Assault. You shroud your arms and you can kind of choose one element. All your attacks deal an additional 1d6 damage of the indicated type and have a trait corresponding to them. So I see the electricity for air and so forth. Bludgeoning for earth, fire for fire, and cold for water. Now again, if you have the dual born feat, you can only pick the ones that actually go with what you chose. This leads to continuous assault, which lets you do it once per hour as opposed to just once per day. And Tetra Elemental Assault. So this one, when you use that Elemental Assault ability, you instead can choose 4 different elements. So, but it has to go through every one. So you choose on the first turn, it does fire. Next turn, maybe you want to mix it up. You go into earth and do bludgeoning. Then you want to do water, so you do cold damage. And you finish it off with air and do electricity damage. And it just keeps cycling until it finishes. Now, it does say if you pick that dual born feat, you can choose the same element twice. So you could do cold, fire, or cold, fire to make a cool little effect. So Elemental Embellish. You become trained in Intimidation. And when you demoralize a fort, you can choose to do it with an elemental display, kind of like showing off the elements. This makes it a visual thing as opposed to an auditory insult. And therefore, you don't take a penalty if they don't understand what your language. So, it's a way to intimidate without needing to speak their language. Elemental Eyes, we've seen this one. This one gives you dark vision if you already have low light vision. Elemental Lore. So again, you get to choose an element plane of origin. So you can probably choose, in this case, a specific one, since you kind of come from all of them. Genie Weapons, same thing, we've seen those already. Scholar's Inheritance. This one is crafting, and instead of skill crafting, you gain alchemical crafting skill feat. So if you want to make alchemical creations without being an alchemist, this is a way to do that. The Suli John. You were trained in survival, and you gain the Forger skill feat. So because you kind of that wanderer genie, you kind of are used to traveling and surviving in the elements. Elemental Bulwark. So you gain resistance 5 against the triggering damage. Again, it also leads to improved Elemental Bulwark. Resistance 10 to the elemental you choose. And let's just make sure for this one, yeah. And this does stack with Dual Born. So if you picked Elemental Bulwark, it'll be 5 plus half your level to whatever feat you choose. So in this case, if you choose 5, you're looking at like 7.5, so about 7 resistance. So it does stack to answer those questions. We've seen Fey, we've seen Genie Weapons, we've seen the Tail, all similar ones. Janny Hospitality. You can create second level food and second level create water. I mean, those are useful spells. Sometimes you need a create water or create food spell and you don't have it available. So, could be useful. Janny Magic. Cast Enlarge and speak with animals once per day. Again, if you want those spells, it's a possibility. Tetra Elemental Assault, we've seen that. That's probably going to be the one you will most likely pick. Then you have Continuous Assault. We've seen that before. Genie Weapon Expertise. We've seen that. Improved Elemental Bulwark. We've seen that. And then Suli Amir. You can cast Read Omens and 4th level Invisibility each once per day. And you can cast Detect Magic at will. So you get a few different spells you can choose to cast. Okay, there's some good unique spells there. 4th level Invisibility, of course, is greater invis, basically. So I didn't show the pictures for the Suli. You have this one that kind of looks to be like a wandering type. There's very desert type attire. And then this one that you can see the electricity kind of around their hands. And some fire maybe around their eyes. So maybe a dual born type character, like a dual born dwarf maybe. I would say the Suli is a good class if you want to play one of the elemental types, but you kind of want to have a little bit of both worlds. This is a good one, in my opinion, to pick up. The Sylph. So the Sylph are obviously also a versatile heritage, and they are primarily about the plane of air. So invisible stalkers, cloud dragons, they're the air elemental types from this elemental lineage. And we have this guy who has a lightning sword, got some eyes glowing. I mean, kind of looks cool, but It has like a very like anime looking outfit. I think this picture's cooler with the whole like smoky clouds and like the like almost like smoke cloud robe he has on with like the glowing eye. That's a pretty cool picture, in my opinion. So you gain low light or dark vision, same thing, and we just go straight to the feats. It's the pretty much similar thing like we've seen to the other ones. So elemental eyes, we've seen that you gain dark vision if you already have low light. Elemental lore, in this case, plane of air. Fume soul, you gain resistance to poison equal to half your level. Can be useful, definitely a useful one. Genie weapon familiarity, we've seen with the training in genie weapons. Smoke soul, a creature attempts a flat check to target you because you're concealed or hidden. So essentially, if you're concealed, you can make the checks a bit harder for you to hit. Like, remember, it has to be due to fog or haze or mist, something like that. It can be because they're dazzled or they're blinded. That is a key thing to keep in mind with this. Storm soul, resistance to electricity equal to half your level. That's always good. You know, it could get hit by sudden bolts, electric arcs, those kind of spells, chain lightnings. Having some resistance against those, not bad. Swift, simple. 5 feet speed increase. Okay, that's just good 5 foot. That can make a big deal for some builds. So wind tempered, you get a +1 bonus against air and electricity effects, and if you roll a success, it's a critical success. So you can survive against like any sort of air spells, electricity spells. Pretty good. I mean, there's not much to say about that. It's a solid choice. Cloud Gazer. So this, anything that kind of blocks between fog or mist or clouds, you can see through it and doesn't gain concealment from you. So this could work if you want to like block people with like an obscuring mist type spell. You can still see them, but they can't see you. And then if they try to hit you, you do that shadow blending thing to make it harder for them to actually see you. Smoke blending, sorry. These are not fetchlings, these are sylphs. Genie weapon, already seen. Skillful tail, already seen. You can see very similar choices here. Slip with the breeze. Expert in athletics, you gain the quick jump and powerful jump skill feats, so allowing you to kind of carry yourself and make bigger jumps and bigger leaps. Get a bit more mobility in the battlefield or around wherever you are. Jin magic, gust of wind and invisibility. Inner breath. This one lets you hold your breath for longer. Again, there's very few times that like I feel like that it comes into play. So not that great in my opinion. Wings of air. You manifest these cloudy feathery wings. They remain for 10 minutes and you gain a fly speed equal to your land speed. And of course, eternal wings now makes them permanent instead of temporary. Airy step. You create a blanket of fog in a 5 foot space, kind of like we saw with the Oreads that could like disrupt Earth. And after this result, you can kind of step if you want. So essentially, you can create a little concealment and then you can get out. You can move and kind of confuse the person. I would say combine this with the ones that allow you to see and allow them to not see you as much could be for an interesting element. It is once per day though, so can't spam it. Genie weapon expertise we've already seen. Summon air elemental, pretty self-explanatory. We've seen that with the earth elemental and the fire one. Eternal wings, we've seen those give you permanent fly speed. And then the storm form. So you cast elemental form as a 7th level spell, and it's the air elemental form. Similar to what we've seen with the Oread, who turn into an earth elemental. This one instead is the air form. We got fly, 1d4 bludgeoning, and all the same similar stats. Again, all the elemental ones are very similar. Just depends on what flavor you kind of want. So definitely have some good choices. I think the whole playing with the mist stuff could be fun to kind of really lean into that. So could be good. And the last one is the Undine, which, spoilers, it's the plane of water one. So these are the ones for water elementals and kind of those that kind of descendants. And you can see we have this old man that kind of manipulating the water, and this other who has a very like bluish skin and kind of like flowers, like feathery embellishments to her outfit. So they have to come from the plane of water. This one you gain a swim speed of 10 feet and the amphibious trait. And you can breathe both in water and in air. Can you breathe in? Yep. So Undine, aquatic eyes. You gain low light or you gain dark vision if you already have low light. We've seen this one quite a few times. Brine soul. You gain the salt wound reaction. A creature that has blood and is not at its maximum hit points hits you with a melee strike. You essentially, when they hit you, you kind of use salt into their wounds, and it makes them either take acid damage and sickened by the pain. A little good reaction, kind of to bust on somebody. Elemental eyes, we've seen, that gives you dark vision if you already have low light. Elemental lore, plane of water lore. Genie weapons, already seen. Mist soul. This gives you the mist blending reaction. So similar to the smoke one from the air one, this one allows you to have connection to like mist and fog and that kind of stuff. So Rhyme soul. Resistance to cold equal to half your level, and treat environmental cold effects one step less severe. The cold resistance is definitely the one that would get the most play out of that. Tide Harden. +1 bonus against cold and water effects. And if you roll a success on them, it's a critical success instead. So against Cone of Cold, spells like that. Hydraulic Torrent. Fluid Contortionist. We've seen a few of these where they help you with squeezing. Instead of a critical fail, it's a fail. And if it's a success, it's a critical success. So it makes your squeezing a lot better. Genie Weapon Flowers, we have seen. Skillful Tail, we've seen. Steam Spell. This lets you take a fire spell and cast it underwater. So you can cast a fireball underwater, and it essentially instead of it becoming like a ball of fire, it's essentially just a ball of scalding steam, and it can do its damage. So if you have fire spells and you kind of, are going to be underwater, a good little meta magic feat. Married magic. You channel the magic of the marriage, cast hydraulic push and obscuring mist, both spells I've mentioned kind of a bit. Strong swimmer. Your swim speed now matches your land speed, so 25-foot swim speed. Genie weapon we've already seen. Summon water elemental. Self-explanatory. Translucent skin. Whenever you are fully submerged in the water, you can hide from other creatures, even if you don't have cover against them. So if you're in water, because you're kind of have that translucent skin to it, it makes it easy. You can conceal yourself from them. And Tidal Shield. Once per day, +4 bonus to AC. Any allies next to you gain a +2 bonus to AC. And you can sustain this for 5 rounds. And if somebody wants to take a damage, who's receiving a bonus from this, you can reduce the damage by 40, and that eats the shield. So it's an AC bonus for everybody, and then if there's one big hit, it can absorb 40 points of damage, which is a good chunk. So, a very good defensive cap to this heritage. This one, some elements that kind of match the Sylphs and kind of match those different types. The Tidal Shield, instead of having like an elemental form at the end, gives them more of a defensive way to kind of do it, as well as the whole hiding underwater part. Again, the issue I have with Undines are situational in the fact that a lot of things based around water, and if you don't have water or if you're not using swim speed, it may not have as much use. That's the issue I have with that. So, with that, that's the last part of our Lost Omens Ancestry guide of the 14 different ancestries. What did you guys think about the different ancestries? Which ones are your favorite? I think some of the ones like Fleshwarper looks really cool. Aphrodite looks really cool. I'm not a fan of the Ganzi or the Beastkin. I think they might be a little weak. All the elemental ones look cool in their own specific ways. Tons of fun stuff to play. Tons of great new options for character creations. Let me know that in the comments below, and make sure to check out my YouTube channel for more Pathfinder 2nd edition content. And there may just be some more Lost Omens Ancestry Guide content coming, because there's definitely a lot more to dive into in this book. So, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.